We'll break it down now. Barrett's Breakdown with Comcast Sportsnet Eagles pre- and post-game host Barrett Brooks on the Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. And BB, yesterday during our pregame show, I had said, hey, if you want me to take you serious, if I'm going to believe that this team has a future and it has playoffs connected to it, you got to figure out a way to beat that Giant team. And it wasn't the prettiest thing. It wasn't the best effort in the world in terms of how they got it done, but they figured out a way to get it done, and that's what you have to do in this league, win a home game in the division, because if you can't do that, I can't take you serious. So I give them big credit for that yesterday, holding on and coming back to win that football game.
There's no question about that. Last year they'd have lost this game, and it would have probably gotten ugly, especially when Odell started to heat it up a little bit, and Eli Manning really got into his square, where he was supposed to be. We were thinking, they were going to have 8 to 6 sacks on Eli. They were going to be hitting him constantly. I think that O-line holds up just long enough, that 3 seconds, to get that ball out. They came in with a great game plan to defend a secondary that's for the most part in shambles simply because of injuries. And, we have to understand that he got the ball out quick, and those are really good wide receivers on the other side of the ball. So, for once, Doug out-coached somebody. That's the bottom line. For the first time, Doug out-coached somebody, went in there and ran the ball, went against everything that he has in his soul, and ended up getting it done.
Barrett, why do you think the Eagles were not able to get to Eli?
Basically, the personnel package that they brought in, and number one, and number two, the biggest thing, Fletcher Cox not being there really put him in an awkward position. And an even bigger piece that wasn't there was the fact that Hicks went down also. So those two injuries, probably the biggest injuries we have to talk about. Jordan Hicks is the heart and soul of that defense. He calls all the plays, and of course, everybody puts all the pressure on Fletcher Cox to be that immovable force in there, and he was going to get at least 2 sacks on his own. Well, they had Bo Allen in there for the majority of the day. In fact, probably 3/4 of the game. And he just doesn't have the speed and quickness to be that pass rusher that Fletcher Cox did. So they were able to get the ball out because they didn't have to, number one, account for Fletcher Cox. And number two, Eli's still a good quarterback.
He was very good yesterday. It was one of the better games I've seen Eli against the Eagles anyway, where the Eagles, we've watched him many times throw that pass that ends up being the pick six in the Eli face. I thought he played yesterday. He was a big reason why they came back in that game.
No question.
But a big thing is, I thought you mentioned it. They game planned what the Eagles do well. The ball was coming out of his hand. What was like 1.6 seconds? He was getting the ball out. They got up there early. I thought the Giants game planned the Eagles pretty good. But give Jim Schwartz some credit. He's shorthanded, and I thought he did a good job in the chess match, save for about 7 minutes there.
No question. I mean, if you look at it, for them to, keep that, they know that the Eagles like to rotate, 2 separate lines. They got a 1A, and then they got 1. Of course, Fletcher Cox and those guys, the 1 line, of course, they're going to try to, beat you up. But then they come in with a totally different defensive line that's just as good with, Barnett, Long, and all those guys coming in. So, they understood that these guys wanted to stay fresh. So what do? They run a hurry-up offense. They get to the line quick. They snap the ball, trying to keep the Eagles off balance. And it worked for the most part with him allowing him to get out, the ball out under 2 seconds. But there's only so many times you're going to get the Eagles like that, number one. And number two, your guys have to be used to it, and that's just a game plan they have for one. They only practice 1 week of that, and I don't think they were ready for it either.
Barrett Brooks with us, Barrett's Breakdown. BB, can you break down what you saw from the left guard spot? I know you were a fan of Warmack. They went to Warmack, then they yanked him early, then they went back to him in the second half, then yanked him again. Statistically speaking, it appears that they played better with Wisniewski on the field. But what did you see from the left guard spot particularly first before we look at the rest of the line?
Oh, exactly what you said. I have to eat my words and say, look, I got it all wrong. Chance Womack, he's not the guy. He didn't go out there and show that he was ready to play. And I thought he would. He didn't step up to the plate. Wisniewski was always that ace in the hole. He has a lot of starting experience in this league. And I think the biggest thing is he's a butthole. That's what he is. He has a nasty disposition to him. He finishes plays, and that's what they needed. They needed a guy to go in there and do the dirty work and go in there and just, impose his will on people. And that's exactly what Westonowski did. Devin went out there with a bad disposition, a nasty attitude, and started finishing plays. And and he may not be the best athlete out there, but he was finishing. He has that dog in him, and he was punishing people for the fact that he's been on the bench the past 3 weeks.
So Barrett,
he won the position.
Barrett, are you able to figure out why the Eagles don't seem as high on Wiz as some other people, or just go to him? Why didn't they just go to him from the start? It seems like they don't want to use him as a starter. They just kind of keep him on that shelf and then don't elevate him to a starter role.
They'll start him now because they see that this guy could. They knew he could play it anyways, but they always want. It's a bad thing about the league, and I hate it. Once you get labeled a backup, teams won't go to you until they absolutely have to. After my 6 years, teams labeled me a backup also, and it was hard as hell trying to get in there and become a starter because teams just visualize you as being a good backup that can go in there and play like a relief role at guard and center, and that's what they did. They just think that he's a guy that is solid enough to go in there and play both positions anytime, anywhere. Well, give this guy a chance to start. I mean, he showed yesterday that he's ready to play. He's going to hit you in the mouth, and he's going to enjoy himself. He can went in there and impose his will on that defense. He was finishing plays, hitting linebackers, and if you look on both of those running plays, were long running plays with Blount, number one, and then also the next play with scoring with Clement. He's the one that went up and got up to the second level, hit the linebacker, and drove him back, which opened up the hole for Clement to get out. So, give that guy some kudos. Give him some props. He went out there and played well.
Yeah, and the fact that they ran the ball 39 times for 193 yards, I'm sure those linemen all feel pretty good. What did you see from the offensive line as a whole? Because we had talked last week, Barrett, can they run the ball or are they choosing not to? And I think we universally said they're choosing not to. Yesterday, that's a good Giant defense there that they ran the ball right at them. And I think that's something that the Eagles, Doug Peterson, really needs to take account for, that, hey, we can run the ball. And that offensive line was a big reason why, because it's not like these backs are these elusive speed guys. They were just getting some big holes there.
Absolutely. They were just hitting people in the mouth, and that's what you have to do. Doug realized, all right, let me run it here. And he didn't have success earlier, but he stuck with it. And once he did put a guy like LeGarrette Blount there, yes, this guy can play when given an opportunity. And everybody's like, we didn't know we could do that. How is he able to do that? Well, he has to get the opportunity, the reps, to go out there and do it in order for him to do it. He can't do it from the sideline. And Doug gave him a shot to go out there and play a little bit. You have to see what these guys can do, and all we do that is to run the plays. They were running plays that I hadn't seen them run in a while. They ran a stretch play where they blocked down, pull the guard or the tackle around, get Kelsey out on the edge and have him blocking the linebackers. Those are plays that they hadn't run in a while. Well, they saw something in this defense that they saw, and what it was, the Giants stayed in nickel, even when they had heavy personnel in there. If you look at it, they had 13 personnel. I call it heavy 13 because you have two tight ends and Big V came in at tight end. And they kept their nickel defense out of there. They're thinking, all right, my nickel defense is tougher than your extra offensive lineman and two tight ends. Of course, Doug had no choice but to run. If he went out there and passed, it would have been working against him. He had to run against that defense until he got out of it. And I guess he thought that, his little safeties and whatnot could play linebacker and play physical. Well, they couldn't. They couldn't hold up against them. They worked into the Eagles' favor.
Hey, BB, how much does the offense suffer, in your opinion, without Sproles now?
Well, he's the most explosive player on the team, so they're going to need him. And, not just in the punt return, but also in third down. I mean, he was an excellent blocker, and he brings an explosiveness that, defense had to account for when he came on the field. Now defenses not so much have to worry about him now. So what do? They can flood the box out. They don't have to worry about the Texas routes, the wheel routes that he was out there and he could execute very, very well. If somebody else needs to step up now, who do you put in his place now? You bring Marshall up? I don't know. You give Clement more reps? I guess you're going to have to. I mean, this is definitely a serious blow to not just the special teams, but to the offense also.
I think the point you just made is overlooked. The blocking. He's the guy they stick in there on that third down that steps up there. Now they're going to have to trust one of these other guys to do something that they haven't trusted them in, and that's blocking. That's a big aspect that hasn't been talked about.
Huge, because even though Blount is big, he's not the best blocker in the world. And then you have two younger guys after that, Smallwood and Clement. Can you really trust those guys to go in there and execute a linebacker coming downhill at your franchise quarterback? That's going to be tough.
Let me get your opinion on the franchise quarterback taking shots down the field. He had Jeffrey, missed him. The play that Torrey Smith, there was a pass interference on Apple, but that throws nowhere near. You could have said that ball was uncatchable. Do you start to be concerned a little bit about Wentz's ability to throw the ball down the field? Is that why they don't take as many shots down the field as maybe you'd like to see them try?
I think that's exactly what it is. I think that they know that that's something he's not suited for at this point. It takes a touch to throw the ball down the field like that. It has an understanding of who you're throwing it to. I mean, you can try to out-throw a guy like Smith, but you have to make sure you hit a target like Alshon Jeffries. You have to know the difference between the two. You can't throw the same ball to each of the guys, and I think he hasn't had that enough practice time or doesn't have that touch to know the difference between a Smith and a Jeffrey. Period, point blank. I mean, there's something to that, and we've been saying this for a long time now. Latter part of last year and all the way up into this year, first couple of games, his touch on a deep ball is just not there.
No, it doesn't seem that that's going to be a strong suit for him, but what he is doing is connecting with Zach Ertz, and it seems that that's turned to his guy, right? I mean, everybody's been asking for him to, Ertz that is, to take that next step, and it seems that now Ertz, who has not started the year with the same quarterback ever since he's been here, has really got a nice repertoire there with Carson Wentz. Yes,
you can tell they're very, very comfortable with each other, and they know how to run that scramble gym very, very well. As soon as they, at our quarterback, and let me say this, begrudgingly say this, I love how elusive he is. I love how he runs, and he can operate outside the pocket. But I don't need that just as much. Sometimes you can stay in there and maybe deliver the ball, or just throw it away. Yes, I love the fact that he can duck, dodge, but it's going to take him, getting hit one good time for him to stop that. Sometimes you need to know to say, hey, the play is over with. But when you have a player like that and a guy that wants to run around like that, you got to give him some security blanket, and that's exactly what Zach Ertz is. He's a security blanket for the young quarterback. He knows as soon as he turns around and he starts scrambling, 8-6 will be there for him, and it's been working out thus far. But he's got to stop that, man. He can't continue to run around there and take the punishment he's taking. He's going to have to learn that, okay, this play is over with. Let me live to fight another day.
Hey, Barrett, have you been disappointed by Alshon Jeffrey through 3 games? Yesterday he had a couple dumb penalties, but then, of course, it's like a hot and cold. He made the good play at the end of the game to give him at least 1 second left on the clock and be able to try that 61-yarder.
Well, no, I mean, he has all the physical talents, and I'm not down on him. I just think we need to use him better. I don't think we're using and taking advantage of what he brings to the table. And that's not what any of our receivers really, besides Ertz. I mean, he hasn't gone down the field to Smith and, allow Smith to run other things. And, on the opposite end, with Jeffrey, we need more 50-50 balls with him, run routes that give him that opportunity, run a smash route on the outside with him and Smith. Let Smith take the corner post and have Alshon have the little option route underneath. Those are all things that are well suited to do. Catching the receivers, catching these DBs, flat-footed, these two can do that if you work them the right way. And I don't think we, at this point, take advantage of that. I don't see us, and I think this has to do with, with Doug. I don't see us going in, taking plays to set up other plays. I don't see that. I don't see us running routes that complement another route for a big play. I don't see the development in play calling that I would think that you would get after, going into your 4th week. You know who you are after your 4th week, and at this point, I still don't know what the Eagles are as far as an offense.
Yeah, that's a good point, because 39 for 193, you would think running team, but coming into this game, 75% of their plays have been pass plays. So it seems that Doug, I'll tell you,
lost. So you can't come up with what to say, because he doesn't know what Doug is.
I was going to say,
we don't know what it is.
It seems that sometimes this team is held back by the head coach. And that shows you that they got talent on this team. It's sometimes some of the things he does makes the games a little uglier than they probably should be.
Right. If you look at it, Alshon hit like 3 or 4 slants yesterday. Well, when you run slants like that, the defense start keying on the slants. How about a slant and go? And he'll be flat-footed and run past them instead of just slanting. Just run past them now. Run like you run the slant, hit the post. I mean, he'll be wide open, but we don't run plays to complement other plays. We don't do that. And I haven't seen that.
Yeah. By the way, what'd you think of McAdoo yesterday in the game that he coached?
I thought that he had a masterful job up until, in preparing Eli to have this quick offense and try to keep the Eagles defense off their square. He went out there and he understood that they want to chase these defensive lines like NASCAR. All right, bring some more other cars in here to run the race. He didn't do that. He didn't allow them to do that. He ran a quick pace offense, made them call the calls, and understanding that the Eagles' safeties hadn't played together as a unit in a while. So he did great with that. But then he turned right back around, and at the end of the game, he blows it. Sometimes you got to slow it down when you know that you're dominating offense like that. A defense like that. Slow it down, run the plays, because nobody on that field could hang with those two receivers, Beckham or Shepard.
Hey,
why not slow it down?
When you played, because this is interesting in terms of the way these games go and all that happens in a game and what the head coach is. When you played, did you have head coaches call the plays for you, or did you typically play for a team where the offensive coordinator was the play caller?
Offensive coordinator played for us. When I was with the Eagles, I had Chucky. I had him. Say what you want to say. He was back for a calling plays. He's the one to help not Brian Hoyer, but Bobby Hoyne.
Bobby Hoyne
play the way he played when he was here. Until he went to the Raiders. When I was with the Lions, we had Sylvester Croom. I always had somebody call it. It wasn't the head coach that called the offense for me. I never had that happen before. It was totally different. So this is something that's I guess the vogue thing to do now. You're a head coach, or you're an offensive head coach. You call all the plays. I don't see it. Why even have an offensive coordinator on the staff?
I was going to say, do you think that the head coach on game day has so much going on that calling plays and making these decisions is too much of a distraction? Because, we saw a lot of plays yesterday, the 4th and 8, that he's got to make the decision to go for it on 4th and 8, which is probably preposterous anyway, but he's got to make that decision, and then he's got to decide which play. Not only has to decide, do I want to go for it, or do I want to do kick or punt or whatever. Then he's got to come up with the play call after he decides he wants to go for it. So there's a lot of decisions to be made by one guy. Same with McAdoo, where it's 4th and 1. They got to decide whether they want to go for it or not. Then he's got to come up with a play. And sometimes I think they just pick lousy plays because they're under the gun.
And also there's 2 other facets of this team. There's the special teams and the defense that need to be taken care of also that you have to govern. Look what's going on with the Rams. Their head coach sits down and goes strictly over the plays. It has nothing to do with what's going on the defensive side of the ball. Wade Phillips does what he wants to do over there. So it's really a tough thing to be both the head honcho on the team, the leader of the team, and then have to call the plays on offense and then figure out why the defense allowing Odell Beckham and Sterling Shepard to run around free all day, and then turn around with the special teams and wonder why we're not flipping the field as far as punting and why are we starting here instead of starting there, or who's going to have returning kicks now that Sproles is hurt, or on our defensive side of the ball, or our quarterback on defense, Jordan Hicks, is out the game now. Now somebody's in, for Hicks, and then and now our best pass rusher, he's out the game now. Our best player on defense is out the game, Fletcher Cox. Who's going to take his place? All right, Bo Allen's not getting enough rush on the quarterback. That's a lot of stuff where a head coach is running through and still call plays on the other side of the ball. That's truly something I couldn't do it. I know I could do it. I know my self-limitation.
Barrett Brooks with us here. Barrett's Breakdown, of course, won a Super Bowl with the Pittsburgh Steelers, played for the Philadelphia Eagles. How close were you with the kicker in your tenure of an NFL? Like, I figure that this guy got signed, and I would imagine there are some guys on the Eagles 53-man roster who have probably yet to introduce themselves to this guy, right?
Right, exactly. Didn't even know his name, and that happens sometimes. Like, I couldn't tell you who my place kicker was in Detroit. I didn't know who he was in Green Bay. I didn't know who he was. Well, I knew who he was with the Giants because me and him were real close. And then when I was with the Eagles, Jeff Reed, me and him was real close. So our lockers were next to each other, not hanging around with them a little bit. But other than that, I mean, I could tell you, I knew Gary Anderson because when I came in my rookie year, he would always say, "Hey, young boy, how you doing? Hey, you keeping that money, aren't you?" The little South African dude, you know. "Hey, stop spending that money, Barrett." You know, so I knew Gary Anderson really close, but I didn't know anybody else really.
But I would venture
Tom
to say,
too, because we got drafted together. So Tom Hutton, we got drafted together, so I knew him.
who was that?
Hutton. Tom Hutton.
Oh, Tommy Hutton.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So is it a stretch to say that there are probably guys on that team who had never even spoken a word to Jake Elliott until after that game yesterday?
Absolutely. Nor should they. You need to get over there and kick. That's all you need to do. That's all you have to do. Get over there and kick. You know, we don't care about anything else. Just kick. Do the one thing you're asked to do day in and day out. Just go kick, you know. But, I mean, they understand it. That's the nature of being a kicker in this league, and they understand what their job is and what their role is. They only know – it's just like an offensive line. They only know your name. Your name is only called when you get a penalty. So as long as they're kicking right, it's good that everybody doesn't know their name.
Gee, Barrett, I thought when we were talking kickers, you were going to bring up that Josh Scobie story again, but we're okay that you didn't, right?
Slow down now, man. I remember I had a kicker that lost a game for us in Dallas, and you know, I shouldn't even bring it up again. Or, you know, like I said, when I was with the Giants, and you know, I had some bad memories of some kickers, you know, but some guys, you know, did all right.
Barrett Brooks, Barrett's Breakdown here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Barrett, you also played in the league. You saw what happened yesterday around the league. I want to get your take on the way that the league and the players handled yesterday because, quite frankly, there was a lot of good games yesterday, and yet the story was bigger off the field in many cases. As a former player, I'd like to get your take on the way that the NFL current players handled what happened over the weekend.
I loved it. You're talking about solidarity. Each man on the team understood that, you know, that it's not the proper conduct or etiquette to just call out people like that and to, you know, badmouth people. And we're talking about an elected official who's probably the highest ranking official in the world, at least the free world, the president of the United States, going down name-calling, number one, calling people to be fired when he campaigned on bringing more jobs. He wants to fire people. He wants to call people out their name. He's caused more division than anybody I've ever seen in my life, but yet this guy is the president. I respect the office of the president, but at this point I cannot respect him and what he stands for. You can't really put things in perspective. He can't put things in perspective because he can't see things outside of Trump Tower. He's never been in St. Louis like I was born. I'm from St. Louis, born and raised in St. Louis. He can't see past 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm 12 years old going to AAU practice with 6 of my teammates at 7 o'clock in the morning. We're 12 years old. And 20 feet in front of us, there's some beer bottles and beer cans. And we're walking towards that, going through Ferguson to get on the other side of this place called Cool Valley where we go practice. Now, number one, our parents couldn't afford to drive us there because they didn't have cars. So we had to walk there, and it's about 3 miles. So we're walking there, and we get arrested because and really just, you know, picked on because we're going to basketball practice. Kids going to basketball practice, although our records were expunged. But why do we have to go through that? They don't understand the social injustice that goes on outside of Trump Tower. So, you know, they always telling, you know, us as athletes, stick to the sports we play. Well, how about we have a president stick to being a politician and running this country the right way and try to bring us together to keep pushing us apart? I just don't understand it. I mean, I look at how other countries are looking at us and they're laughing at us to the point when we have a guy running as president that's just totally out of order. I mean, it's terrible. So I could go on for a very long time talking about what's going on in America and why are we worried about sports when there's so much other stuff going on. How about North Korea? How about we talk about that? How about you go take care of that instead of threatening him? How about we go over there and make something happen? I just don't understand the nature of how this country is being run at this point. I just don't.
Well said, Barrett. And it was a big day in the NFL because this will be a day that people remember. I think this day will stick out more so than almost the games and the results. Was the way that the players came together on the NFL Sunday there.
Hopefully it's used the same way that it was used to show the inequality in the Olympics when we were over there when they raised their fist up. Hopefully it has that type of effect on not just the United States but the world. You know, this is something that we need to talk about. Social injustice is very real. It's not something that's being fabricated by people. It's something that's really happening. You see it time and time again, and there's got to be something that's going to be done about it. It has to be.
Well, hopefully the players stick together and it's more than just 1 week. Hopefully there's more solidarity that continues. If you're going to continue it, continue it. You know what I mean? Hopefully that's something that continues to happen and that the message is a positive message and something can be gained from all this. Barrett, good passion stuff, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a good one, guys. You guys take it easy, all right?